Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Before I introduce our guest speaker, she is a Taft mother and a very gifted human being with tremendous experience in life. Before I do that, she is here partly because of the Paduano Lecture Series in Philosophy and Ethics, established in 1999 by Daniel P. and Nancy Paduano, parents of John P. Paduano, class of 1999. It funds a program of visiting speakers in support of the Philosophy, Religion, and Ethics Department at Taft. Visiting speakers selected from diverse backgrounds and perspectives address students and faculty and visit classes during their stay at school, which our guest speaker will do today. Let me introduce her now. Nikoo McGoldrick is the parent of two wonderful Taft graduates. Cyrus, who graduated in class of 2005, is doing really interesting work. He's just hired by a human rights organization in Miami, and today he's at a conference in Tehran. And Sam, who is an artist, and he graduated here in the class of 2009. But our guest speaker, Nikoo, was born in Tehran, Iran, and moved to the United States on the eve of the Iranian Revolution. After receiving a degree in mechanical engineering for 15 years, she worked in shipbuilding and robotics, holding manufacturing and higher-level management positions. Always a writer and a teacher at heart, she gave up her engineering career to pursue writing full-time over a decade ago. Since then, she and her husband, Dr. James McGoldrick, who is in the back today, have collaborated on written well over 24 books of fiction and nonfiction. In 2009, Nikoo penned the novel Omid Shadow under a pseudonym of Hichikas Hamikas, which means no one, everyone, a tale of three generations of Iranian women. The novel drew from the life of family members and friends Nikoo lost in political prisons and roadside executions. The book was dedicated to women who will not give up the fight for freedom. Nikoo was also a speaker at Columbia University's Muslim Protagonist Conference this past year, sharing her insights on the role of the American Muslim protagonist in popular culture. These days, in addition to her talks about Iran and the Middle East, Nikoo conducts frequent workshops on creative writing and publishing, in addition to being the resident author for the middle school writing program grant in Western Connecticut. So before I warmly welcome Nikoo, I just want to remind her that today, following, as we often do with speakers, Nikoo will be here in the faculty room for Q&A. I think it's F block. And after that, there'll be a book signing. She'll have a few of her books down near Prentice on a table. And then classes can meet with Nikoo over lunch following that block, D block, and she'll be around longer than that as well. So let us warmly welcome Mrs. Nikoo McGoldrick.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here and I'm your mother. You're in trouble. You're going to be a changed person when you walk out of here today, so stick with me. I'm going to take you on an emotional journey today, a slice of my life. At times, I might break up, I might cry, but you are used to reality TV, so you should be fine. Here, this is not reality TV, that's real life, so stick with me. Okay, so to start with, I want to say something interesting. I'm here, my son Cyrus, that graduated in 2005, right now is speaking in Iran on an academic conference about US. If we had a TV thing linked up, it would be pretty interesting. Two of us doing the two opposing views from two different countries. But Cyrus sent some messages to you, which I will read at the end of my talk. Marjane Satrapi, Persepolis, a graphic novel. What I love personally about a graphic novel is it's not just about the pictures, it's not just about the words, it's about everything that you see in there. It's a quick read, it's a slow read, it's plenty of history she mixed in there, but also when I was listening to an interview, she said it's a slice of her life. Is fictionalized to some degree because she wrote it so many years ago of her life. Today, I share with you a slice of my life. Let's go back to 1977-78. I was 10 years older than Marjane. We came from the same type of family. We had the same ancestors. My ancestors were king of Iran, Qajars too. My family was titled. I was very much like a lot of you. I went to a private school. I was 17 years old, my senior year in high school. Everything you could think of. You know, I did my community service. I did my good student, sports, captain of the basketball team, all you could think of. But I lived in this bubble, a bubble of comfort. When I went out to do community service, I did my job. I helped, I fed, so forth, but I could go back to the comfort of my life. I was never involved. There was a lot of turmoil going on in Iran, but I was not part of it because I was protected. I was protected by my family, by my school system, by the privileges I had. And there was a lot of turmoil in Iran. At that time, what I want to say is, what happened? This kid, very much like you're sitting there, a 17-year-old, comfortable life. In 1 year, in less than 1 year, she had to be rushed out of the country, practically overnight, to be saved. She became an activist. She became a revolutionary. She was running down the streets, being chased by troops. What happened to me in 1 year? That's what I'm going to share. To do this, let's step back in time. Let's use your imagination. I'm going to give you a scenario. You live in democracy. You have great resources. You have a life you're happy with. All of a sudden, this foreign nation, I'm not going to name countries. We have plenty of axes of evils, and they're all false. I'm not going to name a country. Some other country moves in and said, no, we're going to put our puppet king in-house. Monarchy, you have no voice. If you complain, you will be jailed. People, your family will never hear from you again. We'll take your natural resources, and what we'll do is from now on, for the money you get from that, you just have to buy our products. What are you going to do about that? Let's go back. A slice of history. I'm going to give you a short one. Quick history lesson. The same week, this is last year, a year ago, CIA admitted after 60 years that it engineered a coup d'etat against the elected prime minister of Iran, Mohammad Mossadegh. They call it Ajax, the operation, Ajax, in 1953. This secret US and British coup d'etat changed the course of history, planting the seeds for many of the problems that the region and Middle East faces today. Who was Mossadegh? Mossadegh was an educated man, a truly people's man. He believed that oil in Iran belonged to people. For 50 years prior to that, British Petroleum, or company, British Oil at that time, was taking the oil out of the Iran and giving them, just writing them a check. So what happened was, Mossadegh says, In 1951, he basically nationalized the oil and he says belongs to people. British got mad, they went to United Nations. Mossadegh went to United Nations and said, wait a minute, what you paid us, what you earned in 6 months from oil to British, from Iran, you did not pay us for 50 years. There's something wrong here. United Nations throw out the case and said, Iranian are right, Mossadegh is right. Meanwhile, our puppet king, Shah of Iran, is sitting there and not doing anything. So then, Americans that at that time were growing their presence in Middle East, and British, that was a diminishing power in Middle East, decided we can't live with this, we got to do something. So what happened was they started this campaign of media attacks. Media, your powerful, powerful weapon that the governments have. A media attack on Mossadegh. Shah, people revolt, Shah had to leave the country, CIA got involved, brought him back, jailed Mossadegh, and he died. People of Iran, doesn't matter what age, if they are your age, or they are 50-year-old, or they are 80-year-old, they never forget Mossadegh. And don't forget, media played a big part of that. The path that Iran was on when the United States removed Mossadegh was one of the independence from Western imperialism, constitutional democracy rather than monarchy. He was sharing the resources among people, who they belonged to. If that coup d'etat had not happened, there never would have been the brutal dictatorship of Shah of Iran, which led to the anti-American revolution of 1979. Other countries may have followed the success of Iran to become independent and developing their own forms and self-rule. Back to me. I'm a 17-year-old. Senior in high school, everything is fine, I'm cool. A new kid starts in school. Mina, my friend. She became my friend. I was one of those kids, knew everybody, went everywhere. Mina was new. Her brother taught history in our school. He was, and she was, a firecracker. He taught us about Mossadegh. He taught us about imperialism. He taught us about why was it important that Iranian, rather than buying all these products, buying all this, we become self-sufficient. Well, his classes, people didn't want to leave. One day, Amina was my friend. One day, we are at school, and there's a big commotion. We look outside, and there are these vans, private vehicles, pulling in all around the school, get surrounded, and all these armed people run in. Pretty scary. If that happened here, pretty scary. They came into the class and take Ali, our history professor, out in handcuffs. We didn't know what was going on. We had no idea what was going on. These people that came in were Savak. Savak was CIA-trained secret police of Shah. He went away. We never saw him again. My friend Mina disappeared, didn't stop coming to school. 2 months later, we saw a notice in the paper. So my parents and I went to their house. It was a service for Ali. I walked in. Mina was death, walking. She was pale. Seemed like she hadn't eaten, drank for days. As we walked in to say sorry to her parents, her mother was sitting there, and she was beating her chest. A dead woman, practically she was dead, sitting there beating her chest. They had killed Ali, torture in prison. That changed me in a sense that I started passing flyers. I started helping Mina when she came back to school. I would go around and help her out, but I was tiptoeing into this water. I was not really getting involved. Go back to our day. We finished the high school. I was accepted in 2 universities in Tehran, trying to decide where I'm going to go. Summertime, there was martial law. There were so much demonstrations everywhere. There was martial law. Martial law meant at 8 o'clock you couldn't go out and you get shot. So if people went to parties or something, they just stayed there. They didn't come back. My grandmother, meanwhile, had a stroke, so she was staying with us. So I was really close. My grandmother's raised me. So I was so close with her, I was staying there at home. Then came the date, August 19, 1978. In the town of Abadan, south of Tehran, that was a place we went every Nowruz. Nowruz is Persian New Year. We went there every year, and there was a big movie theater, grand movie theater named Rex Theater. We used to go there and watch movies. There were 500 people who could sit in this movie theater. I'd been there many times. On that date, a number of protesters were being chased by Savak police. They got into the theater. The Savak closed the doors on the outside, and set the movie theater on fire. Nearly 500 women and children and young people died, burned alive that day. The next day, the newspapers printed the charred bodies. I read that, I cried, but I was sitting home in my comfortable life. Still, there was a shield that separated me from what was going on out there, the turmoil around me. That night, my parents were gone. I was with my grandmother. Every night we had this poetry recital. My grandmother knew volumes of poetry. We would sit in the candlelight, and she was blind, but from memory she would read these verses. Then I would open up my books and read back. The candles burned down. I went to the kitchen, got this paraffin lamp light. Meanwhile, while the martial law was going on, this sound of night had started in Tehran. On the rooftops, you would hear people call out when the martial law started, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, God is great, God is great. I grew up in a family that one grandmother was Muslim, one grandmother was Catholic. I had an uncle that was Jewish. I had Baha family members. I went to mosque on Fridays, I went to church on Sundays. I did not feel connected to any single religion, but I was part of all of them. That's the way I was raised. The call to God, that God is great, for me, was just a sound, was music. I was not part of it. I went to the kitchen, picked up that paraffin lamp. I started carrying it to the room to my grandmother. The melted wax melted, tipped, poured on my hand. My hand fried. There was bubbles. There was pain. It was pain. I never felt that much pain before. There was call of Allah Akbar. And then I thought of those kids. I saw those pictures. 500 kids, 500 women, whatever they were burned alive the day before. Something snapped in me. I felt their pain. I could not stand back. I could not hide. Didn't matter I was good at math. Didn't matter my dad drove a Mercedes. Didn't matter we vacation here or there. I had to do something. I ran to the rooftop. I sang Allah Akbar because I wanted the unity of all those people, all those rooftops, to help me to deal with this pain. This was a government that was killing its own people. What happened next? It came to Black Friday. September 8th, 1978, the universities were closed. I was accepted, but I didn't have any place to go. The universities were closed. I was out on the street every day. I was protesting with my friends. There were people everywhere. Didn't matter. This was an Islamic revolution. This was everyone. It was a common enemy. It was a common government that did not care about the people. There were puppets there that sold their souls to foreign governments. They didn't care about these 30 million people that lived in that country. We were all of us were protesting. All of us were going through this one circle where the speeches were. Then all of a sudden were shots that were fired. People were screaming. There were, as far as I could see, there were seas of people, and there were people running. There was talks of 100, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people being shot. Army was lined up and shooting at its own people. I started running. I didn't know where I was going, but I started running. I was afraid. I but I didn't want to run away from these people. These were my people. I had to do something. Why am I sharing this with you? Because I changed. I made a transition. I changed. All of a sudden, it wasn't about what I had. It was about what I had to do. That night, I got home. My parents, you could imagine what parents were like. Within days, I had a visa out of the country. I was shipped up. My parents couldn't get me out of there fast enough. I left Iran months, just short months before Shah of Iran left. I didn't go back for 35 years. Last year was the first time I went back. I didn't see my family for 7 years. After I left, my parents, all their funds froze. I was the Prince Pauper. I went from the castle to nothing, but I survived. Would I do anything different? No. Would I change the page of history? No. Did I become a different person because of it? Yes. Did I raise my kids to be different because of it? Yes. This is a sliver. It is a silver, it's gold. Sliver. This was a sliver of what I told you about my life, about what happened the days prior to revolution. We have to remember that Iranian Revolution, regardless of what happened after, regardless of media attack, was a popular revolution. People wanted it. People wanted the end of monarchy. We can't change that. Again, don't listen to what Western world likes to hear. That was a people, including me. One of the things I didn't mention, I was on the guest list for Prince's birthday parties every year. I was one of the people that attended the King's son birthday parties. One of my uncles was a personal secretary to the king. There was nobody invested more in that government, in that monarchy, than my family was. And here I was. I changed. I lived for 17 years in Iran. I've been living for 36 years in this country. I've seen lots of rhetorics, wars we've gone into and never came out of. I see mistakes that are being made again and again. History repeating itself. A think tank in Washington just put a report out not too long ago that Iran's coup d'etat was used as a model for 11 other takedown of governments that US used. I've also seen plenty of misunderstandings, ignorance, poor judgment, and the misinformation that gets presented to public by media. And the latest monster, absolutely the monster of all right now, the Islamophobia. Marjane Satrapi, you read that book. In one of her interviews, she said, "We are all the same. Ignorance is what makes us different. We can solve the problems of the world by investing in education, art, cultural understanding, instead of creating wars and dropping bombs." Going back to my son Cyrus, this morning, as I'm coming here, we are texting back and forth. I said, "Do you have any messages for Taft Kid? As a Taft graduate, you've been there, you sat in that auditorium. Do you have any messages?" He said, "Of course, not one, I have plenty." Cyrus tradition, he never shuts up. So anyway, so I have to read you 3 of them anyway that he sent. He sent me about 10, but I only read you 3 of them. He's a human rights activist. He gave up the big money for poverty and is doing pretty well, happiness-wise. Cyrus's message, change is always possible, but it is the summation of many small choices, right down to consumption. Have a vision, but also have a plan. His second advice, try to see every conflict from the other side. Most people are rational, even if their goals are slightly different. Third one, no one in the world is safe or free unless we all are safe and free. That's my talk. I will see many of you at faculty room for question and answer, and I really appreciate for having me. Thanks.